My full name, Milton Henry Williams.
My name is Dana Hall.
Paige, Sommer.
Alaina Alexandria Cardona.
My full name is Rhiana Schafer.
Tamia, Parsons.
LGBT rights have not always been as common a topic of discussion as they are today. In fact, the farther one goes back in history, the more close-minded the general population becomes. Several decades back, the average citizen could have lived their entire childhood not even knowing that gay people existed. These are the experiences that each generation has had with exposure to the LGBT community in their childhood.
They weren't. There's such a thing as a closet, called the closet. And, it was hard to know that someone was even gay when I was a child. No.
Back then, being gay was not something that you advertised.
I don't think we didn't have anything. There was no special groups, nothing. There was no clubs.
It wasn't as broadcasted and there wasn't as much media attention then as it is now. We definitely didn't have, GSA clubs or anything like that.
I wasn't very aware of a lot of LGBT issues. I mean, certainly I knew of the existence of people across the sexuality spectrum and the gender spectrum, but I didn't have a lot of vocabulary for it, and it wasn't something that was talked about.
When I was a child, they were treated as normally as it could be. I was told that if you love someone, you love someone, and my mom had just told me that from the beginning.
The Briggs Initiative was put on the California ballot in 1978. It would have banned any gays and lesbians as well as their allies from working in public schools. This is one of the most important laws considered but not passed in California against gay people. It caused many teachers to be fearful of being open because they could become unemployed.
I have been a teacher for 40 years now. I had been hired to teach PE, which right off the bat gave me the L on my forehead. And so, lesbian for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. And so, it was kind of a hush-hush thing back then. One of the teachers who just thought I walked on water started saying I would never allow a gay person to teach my child. Never.
Historically, gay individuals have been treated very poorly by American society and the federal government. The AIDS epidemic caused a panic that led to extreme discrimination against the community, though both gays and straight people were affected by it.
My last accompanist at UC died of AIDS. Just several, quite a few actually. And a doctor friend of mine who was head of the UC Student Health also died of AIDS.
High school was when it was talked about at first and it was kind of made fun of. But I ended up having a roommate who is straight, that is HIV positive. And so that was the first time that affected me. And so that was a big deal of really realizing, because it was just out of college, that it's not a gay issue. It's an everybody issue.
Gay marriage is a right that has been fought for many years. In some states, opposition was stronger, while in others it was allowed very early. The first state to legalize gay marriage was Massachusetts in 2003. California withdrew the right to gay marriage with Proposition 8 in 2008. Gay marriage was officially legalized in all 50 states with the overturn of Obergefell v. Hodges on June 26, 2015.
A lot of us who had been in relationships for years decided to make the plunge, and the line was long, very, very long. And of course, all the TV places, TV news stations were there, and they were all, interviewing some people. They were taking photos and pictures and video.
I specifically remember I was in high school when the whole Prop 8 discussion was going around, and we had a lot of conversations in my friend group and in classes about what that meant and sort of how it affected our lives.
That was a big step for me because it really cemented the foundation that you really can do whatever you want to, and you can be whatever you want to be.
Every generation of women in the U.S. has experienced discrimination based simply on their sex. Many have had health and employment issues due to this as well. Women of all ages tend to believe that despite progress, women have always and still experienced inequality.
Like this job I'm working in now, which is in venture capital, it is all men. that are making the decisions, and I see it all the time. And the CEOs, it's all men. And I notice it when I go into these meetings that it's men.
I was into sports growing up, and that was always an issue, you know, hearing from teachers or boys like, oh, the girls' teams aren't that good, you guys have it easier.
As I've grown up, there has been more discussion in my life about the needs that women still have in society and the fact that we still are not equal, despite that on the surface it might seem that way.
Abortion and birth control are hotly debated topics, and many women see access to these as a right. Before Roe v. Wade, the illegality of abortions caused women to undergo self-induced abortions, more commonly known as coat hanger abortions, which were extremely dangerous to their health. Now, though accessibility differs sectionally, simply having these options allows women to be empowered and to have control over their own bodies. Here is Milton Williams talking about what self-induced abortions were like in his childhood.
But I lived in an era, and in a location where this was not uncommon. How their life changed. Devastation is the word that comes to mind. There were those who wanted to treat you as animals, and you were not considered human beings when I was a child, you know, by many. The people around where I live.
I'm adopted, and at the time I was conceived, abortion was illegal, and her family wanted her to have an abortion, even though it was illegal, but she refused. So
When I was in high school, Planned Parenthood was more up and coming. I just remember hearing about it a lot in high school, and there were some teachers that were like, talk about it.
I know several friends who have had direct experiences with abortion. You know, even with the experience being as traumatizing as it is, it's helped them a lot.
As a young adult, I've seen about 4 of my friends that have had abortions, and I know that if they didn't have that option in their life, it would have gone a very different direction from what they have wanted. And it's just been useful, not only to know that I have that security and being able to have an abortion, but also that they were able to take that route.
The gender gap in politics has existed as long as politics itself has existed in the United States. Women only gained the right to vote around 90 years ago with the passage of the 19th Amendment. The women of this country see this separation, and it discourages some of them from pursuing careers in politics. When Hillary Clinton ran for president, it represented a large step forward for women's rights. When she lost the 2017 election, many felt confused and dejected. Here are the thoughts of the younger generations on this.
I was extremely grateful to have the chance to see a woman running for such a high political office in my lifetime. At the same time, I often struggled with, like, does it make me close-minded if I only want to vote for Hillary because she's a woman?
Oh, it was the best feeling in my whole entire world. It was pretty hard. You see that the majority was with her, and then it wasn't. I don't know, it was just, I'm at a loss for words.
Throughout U.S. history, groups that oppose racism have arisen to combat discrimination. For instance, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Black Power movement in the Civil Rights era. More recently, the Black Lives Matter movement was created. These groups have used political resistance through speeches and protests to show their discontent to the public.
There's a lot of controversy going on, at least with law enforcement and Black people. That's been like a huge issue.
Racism is something that affects all people of color all the time. Black people see it on a daily basis even today. In the Civil Rights era, African Americans and white civil rights supporters pushed against unequal treatment. Separate but Equal was overturned with Brown v. Board of Education in 1954, and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed to prevent discrimination in the workplace and in public areas. Though progress has been made, racism is certainly a prevalent issue that plagues our world today.
I heard white men calling my father all kinds of nasty things. I mean, as a child, you have to experience this. I had to meet with the dean of students, and she says, and you're not to talk to any of the white girls. That was my opening experience at that school. I must tell you that even today, in this beautiful society we have, I still experience racism. going to shop, and you can call it a mall now, but one of the large department stores, and to see that you're followed.
It's evident when I go to the store and there's someone around me just because of my race.
Since the original court case about segregated schools, there's been a backwards movement in terms of schools resegregating themselves, and it's caused a lot of problems for Black youth growing up in disadvantaged neighborhoods because the rich white families just moved to different schools. Technically, people are not allowed to discriminate because of, like, for job applications, because of race. I'm sure it still happens.
Black empowerment has often been led by individual people. Rosa Parks started a movement by refusing to give her seat on a bus to a white man. Martin Luther King played an especially large role in fighting for civil rights. His assassination in 1968 plagued the nation and caused riots to break out across the country. Barack Obama's election in 2008 showed that a Black citizen was more than capable of running the country, and that the population was showing progress away from its racist roots.
It was deeply shocking, and you felt immobilized momentarily, because this man had meant so much, had done so much for, my race, and against incredible odds. He and for so many others. Rosa Parks, my gosh, imagine someone brave enough to do what she did.
That for me was everything. Having a little brother and seeing him have like a role model to grow up with is the best thing I could ask for.
Protest has allowed every American throughout history to feel as if their opinion is being heard. Organized marches and rallies have let each individual know the power that they have when combined with others to make change in U.S. politics. The right to protest peacefully is guaranteed in the First Amendment, making it a landmark in U.S. democracy.
I think in the protest, it's more of you're finding a group that believes the same way you're believing, and maybe it I don't know if it validates or it just, I think maybe it brings a little bit of hope that you're not alone in feeling this way, that there's a whole group of people and together hopefully you can make this change.
But I also went to a protest my freshman year in college where they were trying to evict an old Chinese community in Oakland, Chinatown, and they were trying to knock it down to do, I don't even remember what, but I remember going and protesting out in front of the building, which I don't even know what happened eventually with that, but I remember feeling good that even if nothing happened from me being there, I felt good that I was able to say what I wanted to say and I stood up for what I believed in.
It's a way for me to not only say what I think and what I think needs to change about the world, but also gives me a chance to realize the size of people who are on my side, who think that the world needs to change and who want to make it a better place. And there's a phrase that I believe it was Thomas Jefferson who originally said it, but basically it's become my motto for the last few months, and that's when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty.
Protest has allowed me to see that even if my voice isn't doing everything, it's doing something.
Each generation has likely participated in or has seen their peers participate in protest. From civil rights to the Vietnam War to Trump's election, individuals have taken to the streets to express their outrage.
Well, I saw that it did in the 60s when I was at UC Berkeley.
It's the Women's March in San Francisco and in Oakland. I went to both of them. And that was really powerful. It was historic because of the size, which is really good.
Yes, I know people who have gone to the March on Science as well as the Women's March.
Myself, my wife, and a friend, a cousin of my wife's, decided that we all wanted to walk. And so we decided to do the Oakland March, Women's March. I don't know why this is so emotional for me. But the young people, like you know, Tamlin, it's the young people who are going to make this world a better place. That's kind of my story, and I'm sticking to it.